Horror Lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you. I'm your Wednesday night host here on BodyBags. It is week 349. This week, looking at a film from Brad Anderson from back in 01, simply entitled Session 9. This film's been with me a long time, even going all the way back to college. I wrote a paper on it for my Psych 2 class. I can't really remember much about it, other than my professor really liked it and I got a great grade, and I guess that's all that matters. But it has been with me for a long time. A nice little psychological horror piece, and it is an ensemble piece as well, and shot live on location at Danvers Mental Asylum in Massachusetts, which has since been torn down and renovated into apartment complexes and whatnot. Brad Anderson, known for a few things here. Masters of Horror, he had an entry in there, if you didn't know, called Sounds Like from 06. I think that's season 2. Can't remember what episode, but it's in there somewhere. The Machinist with Christian Bale, of course, he did back in 04, and The Call from 13 did as well, and a lot of TV stuff. But man, what a cast, man. David Caruso's in this thing, plays a guy named Phil, who's a buddy with Gordon, who's played by Peter Mullan, who's outstanding. Probably, I would say he's probably our main antagonist in this film. And a few other guys, man, who just really bring their game to this thing. Really what you have here, in short, is, and this is, if I can't remember, man, but here's the DVD that I roll with, still no blue yet, but there it is, Session 9. Really, Gordon, again, Peter Mullan, he runs a hazmat business, and so their job is to go in and clean out places, and so he's having some hard economic times, and he gets this gig, this possible gig, to clean out this insane asylum of asbestos, and so he's of course fighting against another bid. And he basically shortcuts his way into it by promising the impossible, and that is bring in his crew of guys and have everything basically cleaned out in a week. Begins like a 3-week thing, then he turns into a 2-week, and then on his own he goes up to the guy and says, "I can do this for you in a week. I really need this." And so, to the chagrin of his buddies, when they find out, of course, there's a $10,000 bonus riding on it if they can get it done. That helps. And but they all have, except for maybe the youngest, which is Gordon's nephew, I guess. They all really come into this place with baggage, and maybe one of them. I'm gonna ride this really careful here. I already sort of laid out Gordon as our main antagonist, most likely, so he may have the most baggage coming into this situation. And this insane asylum in the past, some of which we learned about before it kind of closed down, and a lot of the those who were there were sort of just let out into society. But all these guys, man, have some baggage. It might be just a breakup, a relationship, just down on their luck, and so this is an opportunity that serves everyone if they can somehow pull off this impossible feat and get this place cleaned up. Unfortunately, this place has baggage of its own, and it sort of rings The Shining in a way. If there's one aspect to that story, at least Stanley Kubrick's vision, that I love, is this idea that Jack Nicholson's character comes into the situation, already has baggage. So the hotel works on that and brings it to the forefront. This insane asylum does really the same thing. It works on these guys' baggage, mostly Gordon's, and it brings it to the forefront. And so it doesn't take long into the first few days where they all start to show it. And Mike, who also Stephen Gevedon, I think you say it, he also had a hand in writing the script. He's an interesting character because as he goes down into the place to work and stuff, he comes across a room that has some old, reel-to-reel type audio stuff. And he realizes, he kind of gets into this case of Mary Hobbs, this girl who ultimately we learn had killed her entire family, multiple personality disorder, whatnot. And so each day he sort of gets deeper and deeper into this, and it sort of wears on. It's a weird movie because it works off the natural and supernatural against one another, and you never really quite know the power of this insane asylum in terms of a supernatural perspective. You do learn over the course the reality of the baggage, the flaws that these men bring into this situation and how they wear on one another, which is, man, it is, look, I don't know if anything can really compare to The Thing, John Carpenter's masterpiece, but on that level, in terms of just the idea of wearing on one another, is at play. And so that's interesting. But Gordon, man, he's got some bigger issues that are simmering, waiting to boil over, if I may. And so that will come forward. This Mary Hobbs girl that Mike really gets in deep with in terms of just listening. You never know. There's this scene really early on in the film where Gordon sort of is looking down one of the hallways, and you suddenly hear this voice come out of nowhere, and it just says, "Hello, Gordon." And you sort of get right from there, something supernatural is afoot. But again, it's a psychological piece. So things are working against one another, balancing off one another, and it is in many ways a lot like The Shining in terms of Kubrick's vision of that and how he plays it off with Jack. You see this with Gordon in some ways, and not just him, but the other members. So it's an interesting piece, and it's one that is a little bit of a slow burn, but it is well worth, I think, the travel through it. I find this an extremely enjoyable film. It's probably the best performance for David Caruso that I've ever seen. I really like his performance in this movie. And Brad Anderson, man, really pulled off a bit of a stunner here. The other thing I was thinking of, I never really had this thought process just until now, coming into this review, but this movie will get a limited release in August of 2001. And if you really think about certain aspects of this film, there's a bit of 9/11 foreshadowing going on in a bit in terms of what happens and in the reaction to that, which is really sort of, I don't know how much to get into because I don't want to really get things, but it's, the notion of 9/11 going off and the United States in terms of how we react initially versus how we then extend that reaction regionally in the Middle East. Some say we probably overstepped ourselves, maybe not initially, but eventually probably overstepped ourselves. And so whether it's the Gordon in his own home or the Danvers Mental Asylum is sort of maybe regionally the Middle East, there is a bit of really weird sort of foreshadowing here of just the dynamics of 9/11, post 9/11. If you watch this movie, and I really don't want to get too deep into my thoughts, I wish I could, but this movie works on a level that is best saved just going in as cold as possible. But if you've already seen it and you go back and revisit it, think about 9/11 and just think about the United States as the main actor, of course the event, our reaction to that event, in a post 9/11 world, regionally in the Middle East, but then across the world, and really just think about that. It's kind of a weird set of dynamics, but it's one that I don't know, it just sort of came to mind and I thought about. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm not sure if there is. I don't think there is. Again, it's an interesting piece. It's an interesting film. I really enjoy this film. I have not seen Sounds Like, the Masters of Horror entry from Brad Anderson, but I know it's free via IMDb TV, And Session 9, I'm sure you could probably pick it up cheap on the on Amazon. I didn't check to see if it's streaming at all. It might be, but it's definitely worth. It's definitely worth the score, the cinematography. Everything sort of works really well, and being shot in this place and just the ambiance that it brings to the table is pretty cool as well. And the commentary that Brad delivers is pretty good as well. So this week, rolling into next week, is Label Week. We'll be looking at Arrow Cross the Week. I do believe I'm going to bring you George Romero's Season of the Witch. It'll be a first-time watch for me, so look for that review next week, as well as everyone else in BodyBags. Man, it's a good time to be part of this thing, and just to see what everyone brings each and every day. And so keep plugged in to what we're doing, of course, over the greater Horrorphilia network of podcast commentaries and everything that's going on in our community, right? And as we continue to venture in more into summer mode, as well as summer may be for each and every one of us, all my hopes and prayers continue to go out with each and every single one of you in the world that we are now in, and hopefully some of you are coming out in a little bit more normality. It's never going to be like it was. But those of you who are still struggling with lockdowns and everything, man, just keep fighting, man. Keep fighting each and every single day, man. Just news for Buffalo just gets better every single day. The excitement level, looking forward to the season. It gets kicked off, and we always end these things off with "Go Bills."